All right. So,
Recorded.
Dave, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and we got a bunch of them. So, feel free to answer however you want. But my first question was, do you remember where you were with the other principals when you decided to form SIG? And it seems like the answer is yes.
Yeah, it was in Austin. And listen, Austin, I know this is a legend learned with me to celebrate our 25th anniversary, but Austin we did it together. So, Austin, please help me answer these questions as you see appropriate. When we first started GIS, it was like there was nothing there. Like when you wanted to map something, it was in this platform called Arc Info, and you'd have to script everything up, and then you'd have to visualize maps, and you had like 10 colors to pick from. And it was a crazy world, but you could envision where it was going. And it really changed the way we thought about how we were doing research and how we were learning science. And when we when we came out of that meeting, it really motivated us to try to see how we could take geospatial science and integrate it into environmental science to try to build out things like a green economy. It was really exciting time in a time where things were just moving and changing.
And back then, GIS computers were powered by coal burning stoves, right, Dave?
Exactly.
And feel free to answer this one too, Austin, but how did you guys get into your area of expertise?
So we each had our own journeys, right? So like my journey was, I started off in high school working at NASA Ames. It was supposed to be a 2-week stint working with Pam Matson, if you guys know her. She's a biogeochemist type. Where the idea was to figure out how to build small little tiny forests, get little sensors on top of them, and see if we could get these little sensors to capture nitrogen dynamics. And it was supposed to be a 2-week stint in a high school thing, so my job was really growing trees and taking care of trees. But I fell in love with it, and they ended up hiring me full time. So I worked there my sophomore summer, junior year, senior year, and my dad was sick in my junior year, so I ended up deferring my acceptance to Berkeley just to take care of the family businesses. And my dad's liquor store was right next to where Ames was, and so she's like, "Well, why don't you stay working with me at Ames?" And so I did that. So I'd pop between school, the liquor store, and Ames, and it turned into a passion. And then when I moved over to Berkeley, is the same year that she moved her lab to Berkeley, so we moved that whole research group out there. And I'm Palestinian background, so I only had 3 choices in life growing up. I had to be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. But that was it. Or run my dad's liquor store. And so I try to find like a happy medium, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll go into medical research. So my undergrad was molecular and cell biology, neurobiology, but I still worked in the environmental science lab, where at that time some of these tools were just getting started, and Pam and that group would just throw stuff my way because I always had a knack for picking that stuff up, and I loved it. And when I graduated with my undergrad, I realized quickly that I hated neurobiology. I liked the machine learning elements of it, but I really wanted to follow my passion, which was environmental science. And so then I ended up going for the graduate degree, the master's and PhD there. And during my master's stint is when I met Austin, and that's when we set up the company. So it was an interesting life journey in terms of learning how to follow a passion. And if you're really good at it and really enjoy what you're doing, and you're sincere about being truthful to the science that you're going after and who you are as a person and what your intents are, you're likely to collect a bunch of like-minded individuals. And just looking at the screen right here, there are a lot of like-minded individuals. And if we're able to get those folks focused in the same direction and resourced, we have the chance of changing the world. And it feels like we're doing that. That's a long answer.
That's loud. When you started SIG, did you think it would last 25 years?
It was a beer drinking fun the first few years. No, I did not think we would last this long. So what happened when we first got going, we would spend I don't know, a crazy amount of time planning and planning and planning. And we each, Austin, how much were we kicking in? Every month we kick in $100. $100? Something like that.
Yeah, it was more than beer money.
It was more than beer money. So we take every month, everyone had to pay a little fee into our little bucket. And we're like, okay, this is for us to figure out what the heck we're doing. And David Gans's father, very successful businessman, he had a bunch of, and they're all retired, and he had a bunch of friends and colleagues who are all these titans of industries. And there's these 4 little grad students that they would bring in for these business meetings. And they would like, have you guys thought about this and this and this? And the 4 of us are like, what the heck are you guys talking about? You know? So they kind of guided us through this process. And we basically self-funded ourselves for the first few years to figure out how we would actually get set up. And then what happened after that is that we started getting the type of work that we were interested in doing while we were still in grad school. And we were trying to layer the work out in ways that met our research interests and our personal interests. And as that continued on, it worked out well. And all 4 of us were deciding where we wanted to grow up and go in life. And we all still had this crazy passion for this thing. So like, you know, Austin went off and did the university thing. Gans went off and did development thing. Bajan, what did Bajan end up doing? He ended up running.
He got to a competitor company.
He went to a competitor company. And I ended up doing a post. I ended up going to the university thing as well. And this kept on going until 2008. And then in 2008, like and meanwhile, this whole time we kept on growing the company. We kept on adding a few people here and there. Then in 2008, it was kind of a Rubicon moment for us where we either had to grow this thing out or kill it, because it was going to be a lot of effort or else it would have just, stagnated over time. And so that's when I decided to jump out of what I was doing. I was in a transition anyways, and with support of Austin and Dave, and actually a lot of my family, decided to go at SIG full time. And from that point forward, Megan, that's when I knew this thing was going to be long lasting beyond me as an individual, right? And so the idea is to build this thing as a generational company, a generational organization. People are always asking to buy us out all the time. We will not sell this organization for any cost. And we're serious about that. The idea is to figure out how to set this thing up where it's able to make long-term impacts based off of the same types of commitments we've been making over time. So yeah, when we first started, I didn't think it'd last 3 years, 4 years. But from 2008 forward, that's the intent. The way that we're building it is for it to stay in place. Austin, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess just what Dave said. We had a pretty flat growth trajectory for a long time, many years. We had a client here, a client there, very small dollar amounts. And then it really started taking off probably around 2007 or 8, something like that.
2008.
Moving on to the next question. Are there any, what are some of the favorite passion projects or endeavors to date?
There's a whole ton of them, right? Every one of our initiatives, honestly, we don't really do stuff we don't like. There might be little minuscule things like the tactical stuff that we might hate, but the projects and programs that we have set up are all passions. And if you look at how we're lining them up, they might look like they're individual elements, but if you take a couple steps back, you'll see how they're all integrated together. So if you look at our severe programs, what are they? It's really development work focused on getting ecosystem services, environmental benefits, the impacts of climate change, defined, designed, and put into the hands of decision makers to make people's lives better. And there's a whole ton of examples around that, right? And Karst has taken over a lot of those programs. If you look at the natural hazard groups, a lot of that has to do with all the fire science that we love. We love going after that at all the different dimensions. And the same thing on the carbon side. What's interesting And what I think what makes this whole thing unique and exciting is that we're able to take that next step, right? So typically you'll see a researcher either doing base research or applied research, and then you'll see another organization go from applied research to operations, and then another organization that goes into the policy work. What's interesting about what we do, and which really makes it fun and exciting, is that in that context, we're vertically integrated, where we're able to fill the base research, the applied research, we're able to spin out our little incubation ideas, those little companies that test it in a market space in a way that the research community doesn't understand, right? And then when there's perverse policies or policy blocks, we have the ability to go in and negotiate or inform or advise on the policy side to unlock those blocks. And in that regard, it's really like all the different components are very excited. And what's exciting and what makes it more exciting is that those verticals that we're working on all relate to each other in pretty unique ways. And like if you look at like the avoided wildfire emission protocols or the REM protocols that we have, that's basically taken all our passions for carbon, all the passions that we have for forest management, all the passions that we have fire, environmental services, and carbon, and put them together in a way that's interesting. And we're starting to see more of that over and over again. So when you start taking a step back, it's like, well, what's your favorite project or program? Honestly, it's the ability to integrate between all of them. That breadth of programs, that breadth of learning is the fun and exciting part. And every time I hear a new story or a new project that a SIGGI's done, it's like, wow, I would have never thought of that. And I would have never thought of putting those two pieces together. That's where we have some magic here.
I have to mention one passion project that was almost made us billionaires, which was Land to Gold. We came up, this was probably a year after we started, maybe about 2000. We came up with this idea called Land to Gold, which is essentially Zillow. It was exactly Zillow long before Zillow existed. And we even wrote a business plan for it. And we brought it to a business school competition at the Haas School of Business. And they're like, oh, this is not really real. You need more. This is not going to happen.
It's a stupid idea.
Stupid idea. But basically, we wrote a plan for Zillow, and we just kind of shelved it. And we were like, oh, it's great. We'll have all these metrics about real estate, and we anticipate all the First Street stuff, and we'll have flood and fire, and we'll have neighborhood amenities, and on and on and on, and pictures and video and all this stuff, and didn't quite follow that one up.
Yeah, I still think we own the domain.
I think so. Yeah, we bought landtogold.com. So.
Well, it's never too late. Well, are there any projects that you have like always wanted to work in, but you haven't been able to get into yet?
No, honestly, no. And that's the other cool thing about this is that the way that we're currently set up, we don't have any venture funds, so we're not required to do stuff. We have the ability to go after the things that we really care about. The biggest challenge that we have, honestly, is time. It's hard to with all the different things we're working on together. It's really hard to have the time to sit back and think through the things that we need to work on together with the headspace needed to actually dig in. That's the biggest challenge. But in terms of like seeing an opportunity and wanting to go after it and not being able to, other than time, we've never been blocked.
What business or personal advice do you have for people in their early/mid careers?
You know what's interesting about this space? It's nuts. Like like the environmental science space right now, it kind of feels like the computer science industry in the 70s and 80s. It feels like it's just launching. It feels like there's a ton of different opportunities. It feels like the market space itself is chaotic and filled with a bunch of organizations that are creating noise, right? And this is the same advice I give my grad students and my students is like, look, there's a few things you need to do in order to be successful in this space, right? One of them, you need to get technical skills. build your technical skills, and understand that the technical skills that you're building now are going to be different tomorrow, and have the ability to learn and shift and change things. Second thing is find that part in that industry that you really give a damn about. What, like, what is your hobby? What is the thing that you care most about in this space? Right? And lock into that and pursue it. Because if you're passionate about it and you have technical skills about it, you're going to be successful. And then the third part is really develop your ability to communicate. That sounds like an easy thing, but it's really hard to communicate in a couple of different directions. It's really easy to take something that's really simple and make it sound complicated. It's very difficult to take something that's complicated and distill it down into some words or understandings to make it sound simple and understandable. The second part that's also difficult is the time it takes to deliver information. If you could condense a large, complicated conversation into the typical time frame that people actually need to be able to have an impact, you'll be very effective. And what I'm thinking about is policymakers taking complex ideas, distilling them down to short blurb that a policymaker could deal with. That's secret sauce, right? And each one of those things is a skill set. There's also another big paradigm shift. For science has typically, the institutions of science have typically been built around competitive science. Even our market space is a competitive space, right? I will beat you. My proposal is better than yours. I'm going to get a paper out. I'm going to show you why you're wrong. It is very difficult to build a collaborative research space and a collaborative science space. And if you look at what the types of skills that we need to have in hand in order to deal with things like climate change, it's really building the ability to collaborate and build partnerships in meaningful ways that are durable. And those are skill sets that, we all need to develop, especially those of you that are beginning your careers, because those skill sets are the ones that are going to be able to make a difference and are going to separate you from folks around you. And I think the environment that we're creating here at SIG really is focused around that. So if you look at the way that we're really trying to cultivate our organization, it's built around all those things that I talked about. Collaborative research, right? Finding better ways of communicating in meaningful ways, building skill sets into every group that we have, every individual that we have, finding the passions of every member in our organization and enabling them to follow that passion, right? And understanding the value of a partnership and how to build a meaningful partnership.
How do you make time for family and exercise amidst all your business endeavors and travel? And then how does this inform the development of SIG's culture?
Well, I never used to. Yeah, it's a little hard. So I used to, Austin remembers this. I went to the emergency room a few times from caffeine overdoses, believe it or not. And 2 years ago, so I do a lot of scouting, right? And so they won't let you do some of these hikes if you're too fat, if you're too big. And so I was threatened that I wasn't going to be able to do one of the hikes with one of my sons. And so my wife, not this past Christmas, the Christmas before, stuck me in fat camp. And so 3 days a week before the work hours start, 5:30 in the morning, like this morning, we get up and we do our exercise. And it's kind of fun. Before it was a drag. And then I quickly learned that it's hey, this is actually kind of neat. It's kind of fun. I feel good coming after it. And then the trick was how do you persist this when you travel, still working that out. COVID for me was a realignment in both of those things, Megan. With COVID, before COVID, I was traveling, and most of you guys know this, 70 to 80% of the year, which was hard. It was hard on the family. And then during COVID, we got to recenter all that stuff and got to reset our priorities, and exercise and hanging out with the family was a big part of that. And moving forward, what I'm trying to do is really trying to distribute some of those things, right? So for example, the vast majority of my travel was international to deal with the severe programs. Karis has taken on a lot of those responsibilities, and she's distributing them within her team. So she's really lightened my personal load there. That said, There's still engagements that are needed, and so we're just trying to keep them as short little engagements. I'm also trying to drag my family around with me when I go on these trips. So you might see a little bit more of them here and there. And again, that's trying to maintain that balance. But each and every one of us has our own sense of balance and what folks are comfortable with. And so, you know, everyone has to come to terms in terms of what they want to do and how they want to do it.
I just want to say thank you for everybody who sent me questions during this call. I don't think I'll be able to get into all of them. I think I'm just going to ask one more call because I know Dave's got a call right after this. But here's my last one. This one's the big one. How do you envision SIG growing over the next 5, 10, or 25 years? And what skill sets do you think will be valuable in cultivating that vision?
That's an easy one, right? Well, I mean, let me just give you an idea of what's happening just this next year. I mean, we're going to go through rapid. If you look at our growth from 2008 to current to present, we've been growing at 20 to 40% year over year. Pretty much. I mean, there's one year we've had to put the brakes on it because we were all burning out. I don't, honestly, with all the stuff that's coming down the pipe, I really don't see that changing. Right. And as our impacts continue to grow, I don't see how that's going to shift. We might want to figure out how to tail it off a little bit just so we can maintain our own sense of self. One of the things that we don't want to change the culture of our organization, right? Even the fact that you have preset questions, it's very strange for me. It's for us. Typically, we have very open questions and dialogues. And if you guys have questions that we're not able to get to here, you all have my phone number. Please call me whenever you like, and we can answer any of the questions that you want. What we're going to probably end up seeing more of in the future is a lot more of these incubation concepts, where we build something within our core think tank, we develop it out, and when it gets to the point where it's going to change our culture or change who we are, we encapsulate it, push it out, go after the next thing that we want to build together. The other thing that we're seeing that, you know, where our company is changing is we're getting a lot more involved in these larger platform development cycles where our domain expertise, our scientific expertise, the analytical expertise is getting married more with the need for building applications to support it. So like, for example, Gary's team for a long time was only a person of one in a year. Now he's got, we just hired 4 more developers like last week. Right. I see that sort of thing changing and evolving over time. And then in terms of the skill sets that we're going to need, I don't see it changing very much from the basic archetypes that we currently have now, other than taking advancements in it. I still think we're going to need more computer scientists. We're still going to need more GIS remote sensing experts. The platforms that they use are going to shift and change, and they're going to evolve. But we need to find people that are able to stay at that edge. And more importantly, to both of those, we need to find domain experts, the carbon scientists, the fire scientists, the landscape ecologists, any of the different ologist types, the foresters, right? We need more of those folks in order to ensure that the science and the technology that we're pushing forward has the scientific rigor associated with it. And that's what, again, one of these things that's going to make us unique is that we have all those folks in one warehouse moving forward, and trying to figure out folks that have multiple sets of expertise between those different components is what's going to give us the ability to maintain that growth that we're currently experiencing. So with that said, I'm sorry this is only half an hour. That went by really fast. I thought this was going to feel a lot longer. I am serious and honest about if you guys have questions or if you guys just want to chit chat, you all have my phone number. Feel free to call me anytime you like, text me anytime you like. Austin is the same as well. Our organization is very flat in terms of being able to reach out to folks. Please do not be shy. And all your contributions are hugely valued. And we do want to find a time to get everybody together so we can all get to know each other a little bit better. We were just talking about how to actually make that happen this year. Okay. Thank you, Megan, for organizing all of this.